Let's continue our story as the Dercums head up to see their ranch for the first time. Soon we took off in our Ford. Our 80-acre ranch that Max had bought the summer before was our destination. I was eager to see it. We retraced our route back to the western foot of Loveland Pass to the sign which read Montezuma Road and Montezuma Town, 6 miles. Max explained, Montezuma is almost at Timberline. It's an old mining town in a beautiful valley with a few mining families still living there. There's a boarding house, but I don't know if it's open yet. Idaho Springs is not so high and a lot nearer Mount Evans, so maybe it'll be better if you and Rolf stay there. We turned off Montezuma Road onto a narrow dirt road leading to Dip Meyer's place. Max had told me that the Myers would be our only neighbors for 5 miles in any direction. At the end of this road, I could see a 2-story log cabin with a small fence surrounding a neat yard. There was a big barn of unpainted but beautifully weathered wood. 3 goats were warming themselves in the morning sun. We circled round behind the house. Dimp Myers, our tall and rather gaunt neighbor, was standing on the back porch. At first I thought he had a white beard, but then I saw he was only in the process of shaving. An enamel basin filled with water stood on a rough wood table. Swinging in the breeze above it was a small mirror. Alongside the house, and under a brightly painted red shed, ran a 2-foot-wide irrigation ditch lined with green grass and wildflowers. It was filled to the brim with sparkling, fast-rushing water. In the shed, the Myers kept their cheeses and goat's milk. Howdy, folks, Dimp greeted us. So this is the missus? As I shook hands with my new neighbor-to-be, the kitchen screen door banged open, and there was Lula. Lula was long and lanky, as tall as her husband. Her abrupt movements and short brown hair belied the fact that she was in her 60s. In one arm she took Rolf, and with the other gave me a big hug. Come on in and stay for lunch. Then we'll go to a musical in Frisco. My bewilderment showed immediately. I'd heard that people in the West thought nothing of traveling miles for their entertainment, such as driving 200 or 300 miles to get an auction sale or to go to a square dance. But Frisco? Max laughed. Frisco's just a couple of miles beyond Dillon. Not San Francisco, Edna. Anyway, we thanked them, but explained that we were eager to see our ranch, as I had not seen the place where we would likely live the rest of our lives. Promising to come back soon, we headed up the road toward Montezuma. I was very excited. This would be my first sight of our new home. As we turned in the drive, I saw a small grove of tall straight pines in front of a 2-story log house. Behind the house were several small log outbuildings, but these were almost dwelt by a towering spruce tree and thick groves of aspens just beginning to show their new mint green leaves. The main log house, I noticed, was of hand-hewn squared timbers that were beautifully dovetailed. The rock foundation was neatly built of flat, gray-brown shale. The once white front door with 2 curved window panels was nailed tightly shut with boards over the glass. The windows also were all boarded up, even the small loft ones on the second story. Attached to the back of the house, with a clinging look, was a sort of lean-to. And connected to this was a long log building with the bark curling and peeling off the logs. As I gingerly opened the door of the lean-to, mice fanned out in all directions, some of them skidding on the grimy linoleum which had been laid down over a dirt floor. Oh, I was so repulsed by the idea of living with a horde of mice, I slammed the door shut, deciding not to explore anymore. I was very much afraid that Max might find out my thoughts. This was to be our home? We had burned all our eastern bridges behind us, investing all our money in this ranch. The other small log buildings were a goat shed, a chicken coop, a sort of a barn shed open on one end for putting up hay, a lean-to for horses, and two log buildings for ranch equipment and vehicles. Also, there was a big roof held by 4 sturdy tall posts for protecting hay from rain and snow. A sloping hill led us down to the meadow. Max explained that in the silver mining years, the ranch had been a stopover for miners, not only to rest themselves, but also their horses and burros. The animals were fed hay that was cut in these meadows each fall. Walking around overturned rusting cars, a baby buggy, remains of an old rotting hay wagon, and a sofa with springs sticking out, I felt depressed. There wasn't a single blade of grass. What do we do for water? I asked apprehensively. Max took me around the back, east of the ranch house, and there was a well with a little peaked roof. I took hold of the rope pulley to see how much water I could pull up. The wheel squeaked from lack of use, but up came a bucket, splashing water over its rim, with a dead chipmunk floating on top. I let go of the rope. The bucket splashed down out of sight. No way would I use that well. Where's the privy? I wanted to know. Max pointed toward a cluster of small spruce and aspens. Nestled among them was a good-sized board and batten building, but it was quite a distance away. I could not see myself wading through deep snow in winter, let alone wandering out there at night in summer with skunks, bears, and who knows what else prowling around. We could put up a light, couldn't we, so it wouldn't be so scary to go out at night? Max laughed. Honey, the nearest electricity is 7 miles away in Dillon. Let's go inside, Max said, leading the way to the back door of the main cabin. Another scramble of mice occurred as he opened the door of the lean-to kitchen. We went up 2 steps and entered a dark and narrow hallway with a steep staircase on one side that led to 2 loft rooms. At the end of the hall was the front door, and on either side were doors leading to 2 good-sized rooms. Layers of wallpaper hung from the log walls, but the original wood floors were in excellent condition. This could be fixed up, at least to live in for a while, I said, as hopefully as possible, wondering if we could afford a new well and pump. Well, now you know what it looks like. We'd better head back to Idaho Springs, said Max. It really was a beautiful location, and I knew the ever-optimistic Max was never as discouraged as I. We'd been walking around for quite a while, and not a single car had gone by. There's not much traffic on this road, is there? I asked Max. And he explained why. Dimp had told him that this place had been a stagecoach stop for travelers coming over Argentine Pass from Georgetown. I later was to see Argentine Pass and was grateful. Loveland Pass had been built in 1937. In the early days, before the turn of the century, silver was the big thing. Most often, the stage was just a two-seated horse-drawn wagon. We decided that the long log room attached to the south end of the ranch house had been the blacksmith shop for the stagecoach days. The stone grinding wheel, bellows, and bench with tools and anvils were still in place. The miners, Jim had said, would bring their ore-laden burros from the mining camps of Montezuma, Decatur, St. John, and Chihuahua down here to our ranch. Our place was then known as the Elwood Placer and later as the Black Ranch. Here they would usually transfer their ore onto the dray wagons, which would take the ore to the town of Keystone, where the narrow gauge railroad spur came up from Dillon. At Dillon, the ore cars would be added to trains headed for the smelters in Leadville. These smelters were built by the Guggenheim brothers, who founded their vast fortune in Leadville. After the graveled U.S. Highway 6 was built over Loveland Pass, the old wagon road which went through Keystone was almost abandoned. Keystone was not a mining town. It formerly had a sawmill, several well-built log cabins, and one good-sized white clapboard house. I told Max the big house looked like the neat farmhouses I'd seen in Sweden. He told me that Keystone was a logging settlement and that the settlers had come from Sweden. They logged the trees cut on Keystone Mountain, then hacked them into railroad ties or milled them into mine timbers. Lumber was hauled up the old Montezuma wagon road to our place, where it was loaded onto burros for the mines. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows as we headed back over Loveland Pass and returned to Idaho Springs, where Max had to report in for his Forest Service job. Next time, we'll talk about what happened to Max and Edna's furniture.